Comoros and chairperson of the African Union Assembly of Heads of States and Government, Your Excellency President Issoufou Mahamadou, former President of the Republic of Niger, champion of the AFCFTA, Honorable Cabinet Secretary Moses Korea, Honorable Minister Chantal Nijimbere, representing the Council of Ministers, Honorable Ministers, leaders of the private sector, it is a pleasure to be here with you in Nairobi for the opening session of the retreat of the Council of Ministers. I want to start by thanking President Ruto and his government for hosting us here for a very important dialogue between the private sector and the Council of Ministers for the purpose of accelerating implementation of the AFCFTA. I want to also express appreciation for President Ruto's very strong support of the AFCFTA since he came into office, and for ensuring that the AFCFTA receives the highest level attention in Kenya. President Assoumani, since he assumed the high office of Chairman of the Assembly of Heads of States and Government, made the AFCFTA his priority. I want to thank him also for his leadership. I went to see the President last month, and I said, President, we have a private sector dialogue in Nairobi in a few months, in a few weeks. Would you be able to attend? The President did not hesitate. He didn't say, when is it? He said, I will be there. And so I want to appreciate President Assoumani's leadership and the recognition of the AFCFTA as a very important flagship project of the African Union. Your Excellencies, our heads of states, I'm often asked the question, how did you make so much progress in such a short space of time? And the answer I give is very, very simple. It is the fact that our leaders are fully engaged, and the fact that 47 members of the African Union have deposited their instruments of ratification demonstrates the strongest political will that we have ever seen in our continent. And so the leadership of our heads of states is what has enabled us to reach so much progress in a very, very short space of time, confounding critics who never thought that as Africans we would be able to achieve the milestones that we have achieved. Under the leadership of President Mahamadou Issoufou, we have achieved the following progress. Over 88% convergence on rules of origin, enabling Africa for the very first time since the end of colonialism to trade on the basis of a single set of rules for products that we as Africans produce. Rules of origin is beyond just the technical jargon, technical details of trade. The fact that we've been able to converge on such a high number of products enables and positions our continent for heightened and accelerated levels of industrial development, positions our continent for investment, so that we can see the results of this integrated market of 1.4 billion people with a combined GDP of 3.4 United States dollars. That's why this retreat is so important, Your Excellencies, to enable the private sector and the ministers of trade to conclude on the remaining areas of rules of origin, the automotive sector, textiles and clothing, to also focus on accelerated implementation of the systems, the custom systems that are required for the AFCFTA to see fruition. The private sector is absolutely critical to the implementation of the AFCFTA, as Cabinet Secretary said. In Africa, the private sector is estimated to account for about 80% of total production, 67% of investment, 75% of credit that's available in the market, and of course employs 90% of people of working age. To further underscore the importance of the private sector and why this dialogue is so critical, a study by McKinsey & Company and the Brookings Institute, they estimate that the annual spending by African consumers and businesses is set to reach almost 7 trillion United States dollars by the year 2030, which is an increase from 4 trillion United States dollars from 2015. This underscores the importance of the private sector as a driver for industrial development in Africa, a driver for creating opportunities for jobs for young Africans, and of course, for innovation. The automotive sector and the textiles and clothing sector are the two remaining areas, as I mentioned, where we need to conclude in the next few days. A study by the World Economic Forum estimates opportunities available under the value chain of the automotive sector. They estimate as follows: that the automotive industry in Africa is expected to grow to more than $42 billion by the year 2027 due to increasing domestic demand, rising incomes, and high projections of growth on the basis of intra-Africa trade and the AFCFTA. In the area of agriculture, another important area, the World Economic Forum estimates that intra-Africa trade in basic agricultural products is expected to increase by 574% by the year 2030, where tariffs are eliminated in trade in agricultural products. These are some of the very encouraging projections of what we as Africans can achieve, where we aggressively implement the AFCFTA, liberalize trade amongst ourselves, and ensure that we create opportunities for young Africans. As you may be aware, last year we commenced the Guided Trade Initiative, and I'm most grateful that I had the opportunity to be here in Kenya, in Nairobi last year, when Kenya was flagging off, myself and His Excellency President Ruto flagged off value-added agricultural produce, tea, that was exported from Kenya to West Africa. I often say that this is a remarkable story of how smallholder farmers who produce the tea are now part of the story of successful implementation of the AFCFTA, a story of inclusion of smallholder farmers who are now driving intra-Africa trade. And so I congratulate the government of Kenya for organizing smallholder farmers to be able to benefit from the AFCFTA. Similarly, we saw products that were exported from Egypt to Ghana, from Cameroon, Tunisia, and other countries. And so this year, our objective is to increase the number of countries that are part of the Guided Trade Initiative, increase the products on the basis of rules of origin of the AFCFTA. As I mentioned, Your Excellencies, the AFCFTA has corrected a long-standing anomaly, and that is that when West Africa trades with East Africa, or North Africa trades with Southern Africa, before the entry into force of the AFCFTA, we were trading on the basis of the so-called MFN rules. In other words, there was no preferential treatment of Africans trading amongst ourselves.